Organizations like the Fund and others like it are really, really very significant to just supporting our students, especially our most vulnerable students. Working at the Fund, I really thought about how injecting dollars into schools and into school districts allows school leaders and thought leaders to innovate solutions to the problems that are affecting a particular community.
I think the work that the NCC does is necessary and very important, just because a lot of the negative narratives that are perpetuated around charter schools are often because of larger CMO, multiple site schools, and so the focus of NCC is supporting leaders of color who are single sites. And so with single sites, you don't see a lot of those negative narratives being perpetuated.
I think it's important, leaders of color to be, like the forefront of a district or, working in any type of oversight or governance, because it just gives, hope, and it gives hope and just admiration for those looking up, despite what's going on currently or what I've heard about or what has gone on in the past in our history, I see someone doing it, so I can do the same thing.
It's important to have leaders of color in school governance and oversight, because we can offer perspective and specific insight on how charter schools can best serve our community. What I have learned during my time with this commission is that there is a high expectation that charter schools must meet, and that these schools mostly serve children of color. However, the individuals that are making these pivotal decisions that shape these schools lack diversity and representation. Simply put, diverse people can best serve diverse students.
I believe non-instructional staff roles support the students as well as the teachers in making sure that the environment for schools are cultivated for learning and success. So making sure that everyone has the support needed in order to be their best selves.
So I would say one strategy that I think K-12 organizations could implement to promote equity would be simply to have those difficult conversations. A lot of times these organizations being schools, extraneous organizations, things of that nature, a lot of times these organizations, they don't want to have those conversations because either A, they don't experience them personally, or they just don't see it as an issue for their particular organization.
Funding is the backbone to education. It definitely supports our school systems and helps us provide resources and tools that help make the systems equal. A big issue in education is that there are schools that have funding and schools that don't, and we see that those schools that have funding tend to have better results, classroom results. So one big thing I learned is making sure that underserved areas and children have the funding that they need so that they have access to the tools that they need.
But one of the biggest policy amendments that I do recommend for the betterment of all children, specifically for Black and Brown, is for early literacy policy and legislation. During the K-3 arena, there's a lot of testing that goes involved, but a lot of defining markers, especially in the third grade testing era. So where the third grade testing for all children is where that marker decides whether your child is college readiness, is where it's also career readiness, and also what type of salary they might have once they're over the age of 18. So we have to make sure that we identify markers to make sure they are really proficient and also are able to excel once they matriculate further into the K-12 arena.
There comes a time when we have to sit back and reflect and really look at it. If the teacher is the only one in the school, how can they teach, prepare lunch, clean the school, make sure things are running properly, make sure things are flowing correctly. So teachers do have a job, but it is those who work as non-instructional employees who really make a school what it is.
It may sound insignificant to say that principal appreciation is an important part of ensuring equitable access to education, but what I found is that principals are incredibly important to school buildings. They are community leaders, essential managers, and they work tirelessly for their students and teachers.
Non-instructional staff roles contribute to the success of the classroom by being team players and attending meetings, and also by carrying out the specific tasks to help support teachers and students in any areas needed.
Ways that teachers can engage with the students is doing interactive activities, such as what is your life like after school hours are over? What do you like to do in your free time, favorite hobbies, things like that outside of school?
The money, making sure that people show up on time and know what they're doing, making sure everyone feels included and there's equity and inclusion and diversity on the table. All of that goes into the non-instructional side of education, and I've learned all of that and been able to see it this summer as well.
The academic team, they actually have a lot to do. They have to get ready for the curriculum for the next semester. They have to put in a new budget for the school. It's a lot that goes into non-instructional staff. They're actually the backbones of the entire education system.
A few aspects that I think teacher training programs should focus on is one, training teachers when it comes to teaching culturally responsive methods. And also a cool thing that Urban Teachers does is before they place their residents into schools, they allow them to be alongside a veteran for 14 months, veteran teachers for 14 months before they're placed in the classroom by themselves.
It's one thing for bigger organizations to just give money to bigger corporations and saying this is going to work for education, this is going to be how we're going to do things. But it's more impactful and more meaningful when you're giving the money out to student-run groups like Black Swan Academy in DC, or schools and talent teams that are really making sure that every student's voice is heard, like Mixa Academy.
So my understanding of how non-teaching staff helps to the running of the school, specifically for me, learning in the payroll team, it's a huge part of the success of the school.
What my internship has done a really good job of teaching me and introducing me to is how to be an effective advocate as someone who is not an educator, is not in government, but I'm learning how I can, as a constituent, advocate for students in my districts. So I'm learning about interacting with school boards, interacting with local government, and all those things are really useful to use your voice and be an effective advocate for educational equity.
I want to make sure that I advocate for some things that I find important in my life, which includes mental health counseling in schools, the importance of HBCUs, and also the importance of high quality education in school systems. I think those are three main points that are really important and we have to focus on for Black and Brown children in order for them to be successful and for them also to be inspired to go to schools where that success continues.
Just finding ways to incorporate things that will allow people to be on the same playing field rather than seeing one person as superior than another. And I think that's definitely rooted in making sure that you have equity audits, because then you can assess, what your organization needs, what it needs to maintain, and what it can do in the future to ensure that longevity-wise, equity is continuing to be used throughout the organization.
To my understanding, non-instructional staff contribute greatly to the success of the school. The work that they do is usually not seen by the public, but is necessary to ensure that students receive the quality education that they deserve, as well as for the successful running of the school.
A strategy that K-12 organizations can use to implement or increase their equity, I would say, is looking at data, making sure that they're consistently using a strong and reliable assessments.
One strategy that K-12 organizations can do to promote equity is to actually think of their students and to think of the world that they live in and that we live in.
The UNCF K-12 Education Fellowship has helped me tremendously with being able to connect with other peers in the educational field and just being able to see the various opportunities in various fields that are in education. It's not just about becoming a teacher. It's not just about owning a school. It's about how do you help other people grow? How are you cultivating the minds of other people?
There wasn't much that I actually knew about roles aside from teaching, since I am an education major and teaching in a classroom is my priority in terms of occupation. But after being able to experience being a part of the recruitment team and the talent team at Mastery, it made me realize how much of a large impact those who work with their group has to do in terms of the greater scheme of making an educational system or even just an individual school come together.
Role funding goes beyond just the classroom. It goes towards wraparound services for the parents in terms of career, college readiness, technological support, food support, so that it can be equilibrium for both the child and the student to thrive depending on their community needs.
Staff roles play a key role into the success of our schools, in this case, Mastery schools, because as I've seen working hand in hand with our central office, it's very important how teams operate and how their chemistry is.
The other aspect of the internship, of course, was the different summer leadership series, afternoons with UNCF, and also getting to work with my group on creating a school model. And I think that whole process has been really inspiring in terms of really thinking through how much goes into just the idea of a school.